Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started today. So quickly, just want to introduce our speakers again. I'm Chief Communications Officer Stephanie Marsh. We have Akron Mayor Dan Horrigan, Akron Police Chief Steve Mylett, and joining us today is Akron City Council President Margot Sommerville. A few quick updates from this weekend. In case you missed it, yesterday, Mayor Horrigan lifted the curfew in downtown Akron, so there's no longer a curfew in place. Additionally, all the downtown roadways are currently open. Please follow us along on our social media channels for any updates to that. We will also post any road closures on the akronupdates.com website. Lastly, after today's press briefings, we're only going to hold these press briefings on an as-needed basis. So we're not going to hold them daily any longer. If something necessitates it, I will send out a media advisory with a new link to let you know when we'll be having those, but we won't hold them daily any longer. At this time, I'd like to welcome Akron City Council President Margot Sommerville for an announcement.
Good morning. Stephanie, thank you so much. Today, we are excited to announce that the city intends to implement a Citizens Review Board. This is something that our community has been talking about for quite some time now. We've seen these recommendations both by our Racial Equity and Social Justice Task Force, as well as Akron City Council's Reimagining Public Safety Committee. And we truly believe that this is the best pathway forward for our community. The board will provide an independent community voice to the mayor, city council, and also the chief of police in reviewing citizen complaints of the Akron police officers, analyzing public safety patterns and trends related to those complaints, and regularly engaging with the community. As of last Monday, I did announce that Reimagining Public Safety Committee would be reinstated. Our first meeting takes place today at noon. And at our first item, our topic of conversation will be the Citizens Review Board. The incorporation of the Citizens Review Board is the logical next step as we reimagine public safety and community policing here in Akron. We remain steadfast in our commitment to ensure transparency, accountability, and citizens' engagement are hallmarks in our city's efforts to safeguard our community and all of our residents. Thank you.
Thanks, President Sommerville. Mayor, did you have some comments?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for joining us today. And I would echo President Sommerville's comments. I know this is the right direction for the city of Akron. I want to thank both Task Force and Reimagining Public Safety around the creation of this. There's a number of communities across the country and across the state of Ohio that have implemented citizens review boards. It's important that it gets community feedback. Like I said, I know it's the right direction for the city of Akron, and I'm committed to implementing this in the right fashion, a very timely and expeditious way as we move forward. Second, I wanted to publicly thank Summit County Black elected officials for their meeting yesterday. It was a very open, honest, and a frank discussion about a number of issues. There's no doubt in my mind, and I've never doubted that they absolutely love this community with all their heart and only wanted to see do better. And I appreciated the conversation, and we will plan to reconvene on a timely basis to keep those dialogue open and those relationships only getting stronger. Steph?
Thanks, Mayor. Chief?
Thank you, Steph. I too want to thank the Black elected officials of Summit County for the meeting yesterday. There was a lot of great dialogue. One of the things that we discussed was the whole issue of dash cameras or in-car cameras. Both Mayor Horrigan and I are supportive of this idea, and the city will be looking on how to get cameras in our cars. The elected officials sent a letter to the Ohio governor asking him for ARPA dollars to help us fund this project because it is costly. And for those of you who don't know, the body cam and the dash cam are different platforms. They can talk to each other if the system is compatible, but they give two different distinct views of what an officer is seeing. And I think it will only enhance our ability to tell the public what we're doing, how we're doing it, why we're doing it, and under what circumstances are we doing it. So again, I want to thank the Black elected officials of Summit County for their support with this. And I'm hoping that the governor will help us with the funding. Another item that we talked about yesterday was the removal of the name tags from officers' uniforms. I want to kind of just go over the reason why. As all of you know, I have a responsibility to enhance public safety in this city. That's my biggest charge. But I also have a responsibility to enhance the safety of your police officers. After June 27th and after our press conference on July 3rd, officers started getting threatened. In the days that followed, several people got online as a result of getting the officer's name off the name tag and were able to find personal information about them. This is all under the understanding that the FBI had told us there were two very credible threats against officers from two different extremist groups that place bounties on our officers' heads. There was also information that we were receiving about an individual who had threatened police officers coming out of Canton. So with all of this in mind, and the fact that, individuals were putting our officers' names, their homes, their families' photographs, wedding pictures with the charge of go get them. And so because of that, and because of the safety issues with our officers, I authorized them to remove their nameplates temporarily. This isn't in perpetuity. It's until I assess through my partners, the federal partners and state and local, that the threats are no longer credible or no longer exist. But that doesn't mean that you can't identify the officers, because you can. Every police officer, every uniformed police officer has a badge on their shirt. And on that badge is a distinct number. And that number belongs to the officer. So if you got that number, we will be able to identify the officer. Additionally, every patrol car has a distinct number on the side of the car. If there's a need to identify the officer, you can tell us what the car number was, and we would be able to identify the officer that way. On top of all of that, the officers all have body cameras. So if there was an interaction with an officer, providing us the date and time and location, we would be able to narrow it down on who you interacted with. Additionally, if there's need for a supervisor to be out there, you could summon a supervisor, and upon request, a police officer will provide you with their employee number. So on top of this number on their badge, every employee has an employee number with the city that is distinct to them. So through all of that, we are able to identify the officers. The thing I did not want is to continue to put our officers in harm's way unnecessarily. The job has inherent dangers to begin with. But what we saw over the last couple of weeks was reprehensible, and it needs to stop. But I will be reviewing this probably week by week, and then making decisions. And one last thing, if I might, Steph, this is not unprecedented. So Cleveland Police Department removed their name tags for different reasons, and they're using employee numbers to identify officers when the need comes up. So that is where we are with the name tags. And again, this was a great conversation with the Black elected officials of Summit County yesterday. So Steph, I will turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Chief. We'll go ahead and start with Q&A at this time. So the first one comes from Doug Livingston from the Akron Beacon Journal. Mayor and Chief, you both mentioned that you met with the Black elected officials of Summit County yesterday. Doug asks, Mayor and Chief, have you agreed to meet with protest and community organizers since Thursday?
There's been I think the Department of Justice has reached out to a number of groups to try to facilitate those meetings. I don't personally have an exact timetable of when they may or may not happen, but certainly was very appreciative of the officials, Black elected officials yesterday, taking a lot of time to talk very frankly and very honestly about a number of issues as we move forward.
And I'd like to take this opportunity to clear something up, some misinformation that was out there. Last week, we were scheduled to meet with a community group that was being facilitated by the Department of Justice. It was scheduled, it was on the books, and we were going. At the last minute, as it has been explained to me, the format changed to include additional people that were going to attend, including the media. And again, we'll meet with whoever, wherever, so long as it's a productive conversation. But based on advice that I received from our DOJ contact, it was recommended that we reschedule the meeting because of the last minute changes to the format. And I saw in news reports that we just didn't show up, and that is not the case. And I communicated that information to people who were participating in that meeting, as did the Department of Justice. And so we did not just show up. It was recommended that because of the changes to the format at the last minute, that we reschedule.
Thanks, Chief. Next question is from Tara Morgan with News 5. She asks, where is Jalen Walker's car and was it tested for gunshot residue? Chief, do you want to take that one?
I think the car was returned to the family. And anything to do with the processing of that crime scene is going to be the responsibility of BCI. As I've said many times, we have been walled off from the investigation. So anything to do with processing evidence or anything like that is going to be a question that should be directed to BCI. And I would imagine they will share that information at the end of the investigation.
Thanks, Chief. Next is from Dan. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced Daros with Channel 19. Dan asks, can you walk us through the latest threats to Akron police / city officials? Is this all just social media? Chief?
Well, credible threats came in through the FBI. Like I said, there were 2 extremist groups that put bounties on the officers. There was a lot of threats that came in through social media. During the protests, at different points, people were threatening our officers with violence. And I'm not going to get into the language that was used. It was a compilation of all of that led me to make the decision that I made. And as things are starting to calm down just a bit, my hope is that we're able to move forward. The investigation will take its course. And the work of BCI will be completed. And as the Attorney General said, they're not looking for expediency, they're looking for thoroughness. And it will take the amount of time that it takes in order to get to the truth of the matter.
Thanks, Chief. This question sort of piggybacks on what you just mentioned. This is from Doug Livingston from Akron Beacon Journal. And he asked if you're able to tell us the names of the 2 extremist groups that made the threats, which the FBI found credible.
I do not have them in front of me, nor would I give them airtime to identify who they are. No.
Thanks, Chief. Next question is from Jennifer Kahn with Spectrum News. In light of your comments today, would the media be permitted to attend meetings with community groups in the future?
I would only add that I know a lot of our, and I can't thank the Department of Justice enough in their organization and being able to, I think, facilitate a lot of those things. And I will continue to work with them to be able to set those up, to have those in really frank and honest discussions. And we'll leave it back at that. It's all of our work is obviously very public, but I know the Department of Justice has done an excellent job in being able to bridge some of that gap to start to have a number of those conversations.
Thanks, Mayor. Next question is from David Nethers. Is the city concerned about rolling demonstrations outside of downtown Akron?
So we've had rolling demonstrations outside of downtown, and people have reported some disruptions. They are becoming less and less as compared to right after our press conference. My hope is that people have been able to lift their voices and communicate their anger, hurt, frustration. We've listened. We continue to listen. We will always listen. But the one thing I would ask those groups is to please keep in mind that, there are people that are impacted by this in a manner that, they don't deserve. I'll just put it that way. I'm not talking about anybody that is an employee of the city. I'm talking about, residents. We got calls from people that expressed fear because of the number of cars that were coming through and such. And again, those are becoming less frequent. And I'll leave my answer there.
Okay, and that was our last question for the day. Mayor, did you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, for President Sommerville, thank you for your leadership continued on this issue. I know we've talked a lot about the Citizen Review Board over the last 18 months with both task forces. So looking forward to really that frank conversation with council about how we best move forward. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you.